So Keir Starmer, what can I say? With his Chagos deal crumbling when it transpired that a 1966 treaty would require the permission of the US to hand over the island's sovereignty to China ally Mauritius, and after Donald Trump's comments on Truth Social that the deal was an act of stupidity.
That they, when they originally were going to do it, they were talking about doing some concept of ownership. But now they're looking to essentially just do a lease and sell it. And I'm against that. It's a reasonably nothing like Greenland, but it's a reasonably important area of the globe. Not to anywhere near Greenland, but I think they should keep it. I don't know why they're doing it. Do they need money?
After sealing the fate of rival Andy Burnham, potential challenger to Keir's leadership, and after the Labour government dropped a bombshell that would have put the pub trade and many in the service sector out of business had they not effectively U-turned, also and just before granting permission for a Chinese spy hub in the heart of the capital, whose plans later revealed underground rooms that backed onto essential communication cables, Keir Starmer went off to cosy up to China in the midst of a crisis in this country. His 40-something trip in about 18 months.
Two nations are friends like no other. And I'm proud to say that this relationship is the strongest now that it has been in decades.
But whilst he was away, revelations of his commitment to adhering to the ECHR continued to emerge. Apparently, Sir Keir Starmer called for European human rights laws to be used to investigate British troops in Iraq, in a book edited by disgraced lawyer Phil Shiner. The book was called The Iraq War and International Law, published in 2008. In the book, the Prime Minister accused the government of a deliberate effort to alter international law. He claimed that it had given British troops an effective immunity when operating in Iraq. Well, Phil Shiner was subsequently convicted of fraud and struck off as a solicitor over false claims of abuse made against British soldiers. Why on earth did Keir Starmer get involved in that? Going to China was a handy distraction. And what did he come back with? 30 days visa-free travel. Whoop-de-doo-dee! Joining some 50 other countries who also have this pretty standard perk. How will this help the UK? Well, if you can afford to actually go on holiday, if you have any money left after the massive tax burden that this government has placed on you, one of the highest ever recorded, then you can spend your pounds in China. Great. Not really any help to this country. And the small boats?
The smash the engines idea that we talk about on GB News. How many migrants will that stop?
Well, we need to make sure that the boats aren't available for any migrants. And those engines are coming from different parts of the world. They're travelling through Europe and then they're making their way to the north coast of France. And I've always said that amongst the things, there's no silver bullet here, but amongst the things we need to do is to seize those engines.
And how many will it stop? That's
as many as possible, but most of the engines are going on that journey. So the more that we can intercept, they then can't get to the north coast of France and can't be used. And that's why we've had previous discussions about the actions we want to take in Europe. This is further to that, and I'm really pleased.
Really? I mean, he said it himself. The engines come from all over the world. So that's not really going to work, is it? And for MPs?
I know that the action taken in relation to our parliamentarians has been a real cause of concern, understandably so. And therefore, I raised that issue whilst I was here. And the Chinese are absolutely clear in response. The restrictions no longer apply. President Xi said to me that means all parliamentarians are welcome. And I think that shows that if you engage, you can raise the difficult issues, the issues that my parliamentary colleagues would have expected me to raise, and therefore I can be clear the restrictions no longer apply.
I mean, who cares, seriously, although they might not let them leave China afterwards. Well, if you're a whiskey exporter, then tariffs have halved. Wonderful, although the deal is worth about 50 million a year. In the grand scheme of things, that's not that much, and it is very niche. But we did get the extension, did we get the extension to our embassy in Beijing? The permission then to upgrade the embassy in Beijing, given that you've granted permission and they've got this lovely embassy they're building in the heart of London.
I shouldn't have raised this because I don't know the answer to that question. I think so.
Like a no.
No, I think we have. but I'm probably going beyond what I know.
Yes, I think that means no. Keir couldn't even get walking on the red carpet right, although I think this pretty much sums up the meeting. Whilst away, lots of revelations appeared, but look at that. I mean, China sort of moving him aside. I mean, honestly, as I said whilst he was away, the revelations of Keir's commitment to adhering to the ECHR continue to emerge. And there's even more on that. Who would want to fight for this country, knowing that it doesn't appear that the Prime Minister is working in our best interests? In the meantime, more illegal boat migrants are running amok. Shemama Begum might even be coming back. All protected by the ECHR seems, all those protected by the ECHR seems completely backward. And a poll today put Keir Starmer down as the most unpopular leader of all time. In my view, he is a threat to national security.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cybercriminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee. And you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Well, before we get stuck into the debates, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British this hour, I'm asking, is Donald Trump right to send troops to Iran? The US president has said that he has a large armada heading to Iran, but is he right to be doing this? We'll be debating that. Then, in the next Great British debate of this hour, I'm asking, do you care about local elections being cancelled? Labour's Trade Minister Chris Bryant, who has indicated that 4.6 million voters won't mind, as the elected officials would only be in the post for 1 year, we'll ask, do you care about local elections being cancelled? Also coming up in the show, damning revelations in the Epstein files reveal Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was allegedly offered a 26-year-old Russian woman, all of which he denies. We'll discuss this. As ever, your thoughts, your comments at gbnews.com/your say. Well, I'm joined by political commentator Simon Nash. Simon, welcome to the programme. So, look, it does feel like, OK, the China trip couldn't have been predicted. It landed at a very convenient time for Sir Keir Starmer because there's a few things that I doubt he'd want to answer. But on the grand scheme of things, did he come away from that trip with good things, or were they just a bit one-sided?
Well, it would have been great if he went there and he solved all of the human rights issues and we had zero trade barriers to China and all these other things. But I think at the end of the day, he did a pretty good job. You know, whiskey exports are like billions and billions worth of exports for the UK. I sound a bit like Trump there, but it is literally billions of the Scottish economy and therefore the UK economy. And I think...
no, it's worth 250 million, the overall deal, I think, over 5 years.
Oh, this is based on the sort of turnover of Diageo and its general exports of whiskey and other brands. So no, whiskey itself to countries around the world. Sorry, not just China. I mean, maybe it will become billions to China then, but Chinese people, especially the wealthy, they do love their sort of exotic British alcohols. So I think that's a good thing. And look, China is a big beast. It's not perfect. It does practice torture and these other things. But what's the other option? Just isolate them, never buy anything from there ever, to refuse investment from there. I think Keir Starmer's being very pragmatic. And with the growth of Christianity in China, hopefully they will become a more human rights based, fair and kind country. But he's not saying, let's just ignore the human rights abuses. He's engaging, and that's probably the best approach.
I think he is, actually. I think he is saying let's ignore the human rights abuses, because I can remember how they all treated Rwanda when we had an opportunity to send our migrants, illegal migrants there. And that was Rwanda, oh no, terrible, oh, they had the genocide all that time, oh no, you can't. Even though Rwanda's a very beautiful place and everything was set up, they got rid of that straight away, and that was partly on the grounds of the way that of human rights, wasn't it?
Well, that was also in favour of, yeah. So I see what you're saying. It's like human rights in China are being ignored, but they were being overplayed with Rwanda that didn't have a human rights issue. Well, that's a good point. But at the same time, this is probably a pro-human rights thing in terms of if China was completely isolated, like North Korea, which could easily build, Samsung phones from South Korea, it could build them up there, engage, and gradually become a better, more democratic country. Hopefully that will happen with China with engagement. And I think the alternatives are just ignoring China and then losing all our money to them as we trade with them. They're a massive importer of British goods, and also with Donald Trump, he's not perfect, is he? Talking about invading Greenland and these sort of diplomatic things that he's going on. He's a chaotic president, and I think to sort of engage with China a little bit, and who knows, the next Chinese leader might be like the two Chinese premiers ago, who was actually calling for more democracy in China. He didn't last long, but the next Chinese leader might be a great reformist, like the chap running Saudi Arabia at the moment. Saudi Arabia doesn't ban women from driving anymore. It's a fairer, kinder country with even freedom of religion. And that's probably as a result of Western engagement. So it's great to see Keir Starmer kind of taking this thing forward for a better world with Western engagement with China, for them to be better, from human rights to everything, and also for British trade. Yeah, I think it's a great thing.
What about the small boats, though? That he's going to stop the production of the engines from being purchased from China. China won't be producing them. But even in the little clip, he even acknowledged that, they're made all over the world.
Well, they are, but if China's a massive importer of, you can probably go on, I don't want to give out tips, but, websites like Temu, where everything seems to be made in, not so ethically, and you can probably buy anything there, including the cheapest speedboats. Don't use that tip if you are an illegal migrant, please. So it is important to stop China sending them over here, and that could be done diplomatically. I think in the past, China and other countries have been a great source of copyright infringement for British designer goods, and by engaging with these countries, they signed up to trade-related intellectual property rights agreements known as TRIPS, and they've stopped importing fake goods as a result. So if they stop exporting speedboats, the Premier of China doesn't care about one tiny factory selling a few outboard motors to Britain. So that will definitely help things. Partly an excuse for them not just putting the Navy out to secure the border, but it's definitely a step forward after a decade of the previous government doing very little.
And what about the story about him contributing a chapter in a book for this disgraced lawyer? And the chapter was all about how to ensure that the ECHR is applied to troops who come back to this country having fought in war, to make sure that they're upheld for supposed war crimes. They can be prosecuted years later, and then this guy is then found to be a bit dodgy.
Well, I suppose if you looked at it back then, and this chap was a human rights lawyer, as in the chap who wrote the book, you might think, well, actually, this is important. We had the abuses of the Abu Ghraib prison, where Iraqis, maybe guilty, maybe innocent, were essentially tortured, hung naked with electrodes attached to them in places I won't mention. And this was a war crime, even if you think the Iraq war was a just war. And there were terrible things done in Northern Ireland as well. And if someone's been tortured or even extrajudicial killings, maybe that is something worth looking into. Now, that's very different to kind of an ambulance chasing lawyer who's just going after soldiers who maybe broke a very small protocol.
Yeah, he wrote a chapter in the book for this guy, though. I mean, this is bad judgment right there, isn't it? I mean, you know what I mean? When I'm working with people, I try and make a judgment as to whether they're good or bad people to work with. And so far, I can safely say that most of the jobs and the people I've worked with or for, or done things for, haven't turned out to be anywhere near this guy.
Well, that's a good point, but not everyone you work with, you know if they're a good or bad person. You must have had colleagues on the show who aren't here anymore who maybe haven't done the right thing at times. Professional relationships don't mean that you know.
I haven't written a chapter in their book, though.
Well, yeah, you might have done. I mean, maybe in your early 20s, you wrote a paper for a lecturer at university, and then that lecturer turned out not to be a good person. These things happen, you know. If someone said to you, "Can you write a chapter in my book?" And by the way, I'm a human rights lawyer. I'm trying to make the world better. And Keir Starmer's in a similar area. I think one would oblige and think, "Oh, well, yeah, I'll help this guy out."
But even now, they're looking to, get rid of the clause that protects veterans. So even now, though, having been found to have written a piece in the book, even now, his government are looking to ensure and chase veterans for any potential war crimes many years later. We know this.
Well, I mean, war crimes are very serious. We do have the Geneva Convention. I mean, this can be very serious stuff. I mean, we don't want people being chased on very spurious grounds.
But there are already laws for that anyway. So he is just removing a protection from soldiers. So there are laws against war crimes anyway. But this is the Legacy Act, isn't it? He's looking to take away the protections from soldiers. I mean, that's not...
That's not true. I mean, I don't think soldiers are protected from committing war crimes. That would be torturing.
Not war crimes, but he's looking to take away their protections so that they can investigate their behaviour in warfare many years later, so they can be pursued. And he's associated with somebody who was found to be fraudulently pursuing people. Do you know what I mean? And he's still on that track even now. So I just think,
Well, it's easy to sort of take these emotional shortcuts. I mean, this lawyer has been prosecuted for fraud, so arguably the system's worked, and I think that'll be a big warning shot for any other solicitor looking to make fraudulent claims against soldiers who are, in fact, innocent. I mean, an investigation might involve someone being written to by the military police and then being asked for an interview, and then it might be a court case later, and that would be probably quite distressing. But again, war crimes are very serious. I mean, do you want a statute of limitations?
No, but it's not war crimes. It's the thing is, anyway. Look, I don't know, but the thing is, the bottom line is there are rules of engagement, and people are meant to follow those, and that's how we've always had it. But to remove protections from people, I think is wrong, because you're not going to get anyone joining the armed forces, because as you've seen, it's very difficult to disprove or prove things either way. Well, look, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you so much, Simon Nash. He's a political commentator. Thank you for your views. We could talk about this all day, but we haven't got all day, sadly. And of course, that is not to say that Keir Starmer was involved in any of that. He just wrote a chapter in this person's book. But so stay with us anyway. Loads more still to come. Remember, if you're a friend of GB News, you can vote in today's You Decide poll for free by scanning the QR code now. And I'm asking, was the Prime Minister's trip to Asia a success? Let me know what you think. I'd love to see what the results are. They'll be revealed towards the end of the programme. Still to come.